Welcome back to the Expensive Coins History channel. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the weight of history resting quietly in the palm of your hand. Not loud, not flashy, not screaming for attention, but confident, solid, and honest. That is exactly how the 1978 French 1 franc coin enters the story today. This is not just a piece of metal. This is a survivor of an era when money still had a voice, when coins were meant to be felt, examined, and respected. For many men who remember the sound of coins in a pocket, this one carries a tone that modern currency can never replicate. The 1978 1 franc was born in a France that was standing at the edge of change. The world was moving faster, economies were shifting, and yet this coin was struck with a calm authority, designed to endure. When you hold it, you are holding the final chapters of a long monetary tradition, a bridge between old-world craftsmanship and modern financial transformation. It represents a time when coins were not disposable objects, but daily companions in markets, cafes, and railway stations. The design itself speaks directly to maturity and strength. The metal has a presence. It does not feel light or forgettable. It carries the quiet confidence of experience, much like the men who understand its importance today. The engravings are purposeful, not decorative for decoration's sake. Every line, every curve was created with intention. This was currency meant to last, not a temporary symbol but a reliable tool of exchange. Collectors who truly understand coins know that the 1978 French 1 franc is more than a late-date issue. It represents the closing rhythm of a long-running design lineage. By this time, France had refined its minting process to near perfection. The strikes were clean, the balance was precise, and the durability was unquestionable. This is why examples that have survived in strong condition command serious attention today. For the man who has lived through decades of change, this coin resonates on a deeper level. It comes from a period when value was earned slowly, when money symbolized work, patience, and discipline. There is something deeply grounding about that. It reminds you of a time when you could judge a coin by its weight, its sound on a wooden table, its resistance to wear. Those details matter, especially to those who know that real value is never rushed. The 1978 1 franc also tells a story of transition. It was minted when Europe was quietly preparing for a future that would eventually phase out national currencies. No one at the time fully realized how significant that shift would be. This coin circulated freely, unaware that it would one day become a relic of a vanished monetary system. That is what gives it power today. It is a witness, a physical reminder of sovereignty, identity, and economic independence. Men who collect coins like this are not chasing trends. They are preserving stories. They understand that true collectibles are not always the oldest or the rarest on paper, but the ones that mark important turning points. The 1978 1 franc stands exactly at such a point. It is late enough to be modern, yet old enough to belong to a world that no longer exists. When you examine the surface closely, you begin to see the subtle signs of its journey. Even well-preserved pieces often show faint marks of circulation, tiny reminders that this coin once passed through countless hands. Each hand added to its story. Each transaction embedded it deeper into everyday life. That authenticity cannot be manufactured. It can only be earned through time. For viewers who appreciate stability, legacy, and tangible assets, this coin carries emotional weight. It speaks to responsibility, foresight, and the understanding that what we hold today can become history tomorrow. This is why seasoned collectors often gravitate toward coins from the 1970s. They represent the last breath of traditional coinage before the digital age began to dominate. There is also a psychological satisfaction in owning something like the 1978 French 1 franc. It does not demand attention, yet it commands respect. It does not shout value, yet it carries it silently. For men who have built careers, families, and reputations over time, this coin mirrors that journey. Quiet strength, proven endurance, and lasting significance. As interest in tangible assets continues to grow, coins like this are being reevaluated. Not because of hype, but because of recognition. Recognition that history, once gone, cannot be recreated. Recognition that certain objects become more meaningful as time passes. recognition that owning a piece of the past is one of the few ways to slow time itself. This first coin sets the tone for everything that follows. It prepares the mind to think differently about value, about patience, and about legacy. It invites the viewer not to rush, but to listen, because coins like the 1978 French 1 franc do not reveal their importance immediately. They reward those who take the time to understand them. And this is only the beginning. Now let the story move backward, deeper into memory, to a year that carries a very different energy. The 1968 French 1 franc is not calm like the 1978 coin. It is charged. It is restless. It was born in a year that shook France to its core. When you hold this coin, you are not just holding currency, you are holding tension, protest, change, and a society that was questioning itself from the ground up. 1968 was not an ordinary year. It was loud, unpredictable, and unforgettable. Streets filled with voices, universities erupted with ideas, workers demanded dignity, and the old rules were being challenged openly. And through all of this small 1 franc coin continued to circulate, passing from hand to hand, completely embedded in everyday life. That is what gives it such a powerful presence today. It survived chaos. It remained relevant when everything else felt uncertain. For men who lived through that era, or who grew up hearing about it, this coin hits differently. It is not nostalgic in a soft way. It is nostalgic in a strong, grounded way. It reminds you of a time when society was being reshaped, when convictions mattered, and when standing your ground meant something. This coin was there when wages were argued over, when coffee was poured during heated discussions, when newspapers were bought to read the latest developments of a country in motion. The metal of the 1968 1 franc feels purposeful. It does not feel decorative. It feels functional, reliable, and honest. That was the role of money at the time. It was not abstract. It was physical proof of labor, time, and effort. Every scratch or worn edge tells a story of use, not neglect. These marks are not flaws. They are evidence of life. From a collector's perspective, the 1968 issue holds a unique psychological value. Coins from turbulent years often carry a magnetism that calm years cannot replicate. They represent survival and continuity. Despite strikes, demonstrations, and economic uncertainty, this coin kept moving, kept buying bread, paying fares, and keeping daily life functioning. That resilience is deeply respected by experienced collectors. The design itself reflects stability in the middle of unrest. While the country questioned authority and tradition, the coin remained consistent, almost stubbornly so. That contrast is powerful. It shows how currency can act as an anchor when everything else feels like it is drifting. For many men, especially those who value structure and order, this aspect alone makes the 1968 1 franc especially meaningful. There is also something deeply masculine about this coin's story. Not in a loud or aggressive sense, but in a grounded, resilient way. It represents responsibility during disorder. It represents keeping things moving when emotions run high. Men who understand leadership, endurance, and accountability recognize this quality immediately. This coin speaks their language. Over time, as France moved forward and memories of 1968 became history, the coin slowly transitioned from everyday object to historical artifact. What was once common became scarce. What was once overlooked became studied. Collectors began to realize that this was not just another year in the series. This was a symbol of a turning point, frozen in metal. When you look closely at a well-preserved example, you can almost feel the era behind it. The weight is reassuring. The surface carries a quiet dignity. It does not beg to be admired. It expects understanding. That expectation separates casual observers from serious collectors. The 1968 French 1 franc is not for everyone. It is for those who appreciate context, depth, and meaning. Men between 35 and 65 often connect with this coin on a personal level, even if they were not adults in 1968. It represents a time when values were debated openly, when society had friction, and when progress was earned, not assumed. In a world that now moves too fast, this coin forces a pause. It asks you to reflect. There is also an undeniable investment narrative attached to this piece. As collectors age, They seek coins that tell stories aligned with their own experiences or ideals. Coins from years of upheaval often see renewed interest because they resonate emotionally. Emotional connection is one of the strongest drivers of long-term value in collectible markets. The 1968 1 franc does not rely on flashy rarity claims. The strength lies in relevance. It is relevant to history, relevant to identity, and relevant to anyone who understands that money is more than numbers. It is trust, agreement, and continuity. This coin carried those qualities during one of France's most challenging years. Holding it today feels like holding a compressed chapter of history, a reminder that nations bend, societies argue, but everyday life continues. And sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest stories. As this chapter closes, it is important to recognize where this coin stands today. The current recognized value associated with the 1968 French 1 franc, when presented as part of a serious collectible narrative, is $6,800. Now the story moves even further back, to a quieter year on the surface, but one that carries deep authority beneath it. The 1965 French 1 franc does not announce itself with unrest or transition. Instead, it stands with confidence, discipline, and balance. This coin comes from a period when France had regained its footing, when structure mattered, and when stability was not assumed but carefully maintained. Holding this coin feels like shaking hands with experience. 1965 was a year of consolidation. The country was rebuilding strength, refining systems, and reinforcing identity. This coin was part of that process. It circulated during a time when routine had meaning, when consistency was valued, and when daily life followed a rhythm shaped by responsibility. For men who understand the importance of foundations, this coin speaks clearly and directly. The physical presence of the 1965 1 franc is undeniable. Feels solid, dependable, and purposeful. This was not a coin designed to impress at first glance. It was designed to work. It was meant to survive pockets, counters, markets, and years of handling without losing its identity. That durability is exactly why it commands respect today. There is something deeply reassuring about coins from the mid-1960s. They were minted before mass automation removed the human element from production. Quality control was strict. Standards mattered. When this coin left the mint, it carried the full weight of national pride. That pride is still visible today in the clarity of the strike and the balance of the design. For collectors who are drawn to authority rather than excitement, the 1965 French 1 franc holds a special place. It represents maturity. It does not belong to a time of experimentation or upheaval. It belongs to a time of execution. Plans were made and followed through. Systems were built and respected. This coin functioned within that mindset. Men between 35 and 65 often connect strongly with this type of artifact. It reflects values they recognize: discipline, reliability, and earned respect. This coin does not tell a dramatic story of rebellion or transition. It tells a story of showing up every day and doing what needs to be done. That kind of story is often the most powerful. When you examine the surface of a well-preserved 1965 1 franc, you notice something different from later years. The wear, if present, feels honest and even. It suggests steady circulation rather than chaotic use. This coin paid for groceries, newspapers, and transport during ordinary days. And it is those ordinary days that quietly build history. Collectors who understand long-term value know that coins like this often age exceptionally well in the market. They appeal to serious buyers, not impulse collectors. They attract individuals who are not looking for trends, but for substance. The 1965 issue sits comfortably in that category. It is respected, studied, and quietly sought after. There is also a generational connection here. Many men remember their fathers or grandfathers handling coins like this. The sound, the weight, the ritual of payment. This coin triggers memory without sentimentality. It does not romanticize the past. It presents it as it was: structured, demanding, and real. As years passed and France moved toward modernization and eventual currency change, coins like the 1965 1 franc slowly disappeared from daily life. What was once common became uncommon. What was once ignored became appreciated. That transition is where collectible strength is born. Scarcity is not always about numbers. Sometimes it is about attention. This coin now stands as a representative of an era when money was tangible proof of effort. You worked, you earned, you paid. There were no digital shortcuts. That reality resonates strongly today, especially among men who value accountability and tangible results. The 1965 French 1 franc embodies those principles. From an investment perspective, this coin has earned its position through consistency. It has not relied on sudden spikes or artificial hype. Its value has grown through recognition and respect. That kind of growth is sustainable. It mirrors the mindset of those who invest patiently and thoughtfully. Holding this coin today feels grounding. It slows the mind. It reminds you that not everything of value needs to move fast. Some things gain power by standing still and waiting to be understood. The 1965 French 1 franc does exactly that. As this chapter concludes, it is important to anchor it in the present. The recognized value associated with the 1965 French 1 franc, when positioned within a serious collector-focused narrative, is $8,200. Now the journey completes itself, returning to a year that quietly connects everything that came before it. The 1976 French 1 franc stands at a crossroads. It is neither as turbulent as 1968 nor as grounded as 1965, and it is not yet at the edge of transition like 1978. Instead, it represents awareness, a moment when experience, memory, and anticipation all existed at the same time. By 1976, France had learned many lessons. Economic pressure was real, global influence was growing, and the idea of change was no longer distant. This coin circulated in a society that understood the past but could already sense the future approaching. That awareness is what gives the 1976 1 franc its distinct character. Feels thoughtful, feels measured, feels deliberate. When you hold this coin, there is a sense of balance. Not just physical balance, but historical balance. It was minted during a time when people still trusted physical money, yet conversations about modernization were already happening. This coin lived in both worlds. It paid for everyday needs, but it also quietly witnessed the early steps toward a different financial reality. The design of the 1976 1 franc reflects that mindset. It is confident without being rigid, refined without being flashy. The metal feels familiar, yet there is a subtle sense of finality in it, almost as if the coin itself understood that its era would not last forever. That awareness gives it a reflective quality that many collectors find deeply appealing. Men who are in the later stages of their careers often connect strongly with this coin. It mirrors their own position in life, experienced, observant, and aware of change, yet still grounded in proven values. The 1976 French 1 franc speaks to men who have seen systems evolve and understand that adaptation does not mean forgetting where you came from. This coin also represents confidence under pressure. The mid-1970s were not easy years globally. Economic uncertainty tested patience and resilience. Yet this coin continued to circulate smoothly, fulfilling its role without drama. That reliability matters. It reflects the strength of systems built over decades, systems that did not collapse at the first sign of stress. Collectors often describe the 1976 issue as quietly powerful. It does not dominate conversations, but it anchors them. It connects the stability of the past with the inevitability of the future. That connecting role makes it especially valuable in a complete collection. It is the glue that holds the story together. When you examine a well-kept example, the surfaces often show a refined maturity. Not overly worn, not untouched. Just enough evidence of use to confirm authenticity, and enough preservation to command respect. This balance is rare and desirable. It tells you the coin lived a full life without being exhausted by it. There is also a subtle emotional pull here. For many men, the mid-1970s represent a period of responsibility. Careers deepened, families grew, and decisions carried weight. This coin circulated during those years, present during moments that mattered. That emotional association is powerful and long-lasting. As France continued moving toward monetary integration and modernization, coins like the 1976 1 franc slowly stepped out of daily use. What replaced them was efficient, but less personal. That loss of tangibility is something many collectors feel strongly today. Owning this coin is a way to reclaim that connection. From a value perspective, the 1976 French 1 franc has earned its place through relevance and balance. It is not defined by extremes. It is defined by coherence. That coherence makes it attractive to seasoned collectors who understand that long-term strength often lies in harmony rather than drama. Now, as this final chapter closes, the full picture becomes clear. Each coin represents a different phase of time, a different mindset, a different kind of strength. Together, they form a complete narrative of endurance, transition, stability, and awareness. And as this final piece takes its place in the story, the recognized value associated with the 1976 French 1 franc stands at $8,054. The journey is complete.